Good evening. Once upon a time, there was a church in Peotone, Illinois, and it was a church in a box. Being a church in a box had its unique set of challenges because a box is not a very large space. We're in love with Jesus, and the mission of the people of the church in a box had two action verbs in it: transform and share. It didn't matter to them that they were a church in a box, as long as they were transformed. Lots of things come in a box, but not usually a church. Engagement rings come in a box. Cracker Jacks come in a box. Chocolates come in a box, but not usually a church. But this was a church by the power of the gospel of Jesus Christ, so that they could actively share that good news with the Peotone community and surrounding area. And all of this they did to the glory of God. But they wanted to go outside of the box. And to do this, the pastor of the church in the box came happily to his office in the box day after day, week after week, year after year, doing life and ministry from his box office. But there were no movies at this box office, or no red carpets, and no Academy Awards. But he didn't care. He was happy doing the work of Jesus from the box. One of the challenges of the pastor of the church in a box was finding space to have meetings with people that needed to talk with him. A young couple about to be married wanted to become husband and wife in the church in the box. And the pastor scheduled a premarital counseling session with the wonderful couple, Amy and Mike. Amy arrived at the church in the box, and she was elated to finally be engaged after a long wait for Mike to propose. In fact, she was so anxious to walk down the aisle that she wore her veil and brought some flowers to get her in the mood for her big day. There wasn't a lot of room for Amy inside the box. Speaking of aisles, that was one of Amy's big questions for the pastor of the church in the box. Where is the aisle in this box? And how will my father fit in here to walk me down it? The pastor of the church in the box was perplexed, and he didn't quite know what to say. So he said to Amy, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know. And before he was finished with what he was saying, Mike arrived for their premarital counseling session, carrying his extremely heavy ball and chain. Mike apologized for it taking him so long to get to the meeting, but he explained how after he proposed to Amy, and she had given him a ball and chain, she pulled it out of her gigantic purse and expected him to carry it around for the rest of his life. Of course, the pastor of the church in a box knew that this couple was headed for disaster, disappointment, and possibly divorce if he didn't show them how to be transformed by the love of Jesus and give their relationship over to him. So the pastor told Mike to leave the ball and chain outside of the box and outside of the marriage. And the three of them bowed their heads to pray and ask God to bless the upcoming marriage of Amy and Mike. They still didn't have that aisle matter worked out, but after prayer and talking with the pastor, Amy didn't care anymore about any of those things. She was just happy to be with Mike, and Mike was certainly relieved and happy to now only have to carry Amy's purse and not the ball and chain. Lots and lots of different ministries happen inside the church in a box. Men's ministries, women's ministries, prayer ministries, Bible studies, youth activities, and Awana. On Sunday mornings, there was no room for all of the members of the church in a box to meet for worship. So the box was moved to a bit larger box, and it was a box within a box. Tables and chairs and sound equipment and children's items were all packed up and moved to the local school so that all of the members of the church in a box could worship Jesus together. Along came a Sunday morning visitor to the church in a box, and the visitor had 3 brand new babies. It was her first visit to the church, and she was a bit nervous about bringing her 3 babies to the nursery. But she had heard so much in the community about how the people in the box, in the church in the box, were sharing the love of Jesus, she would take a risk. She and her babies went to the nursery, and they were greeted by a cheerful nursery worker who seemed a little overwhelmed by the number of babies in her care. Wanting to accommodate the visitor and her babies, the nursery worker emptied her arms of all the other babies and shoved them inside another box. And she shoved and she shoved and she moved. She wanted to accommodate our new visitor, so she shoved the babies and tossed them to the back of the box and opened her arms to welcome the new visitor's babies. Scared to death, the visitor decided not to stay after all. And she went home to take care of her babies herself. But she was sad because she still longed to be a part of the church in the box. She had heard all of these great things about them, and she just figured she'd have to wait until her babies grew up and she could come back and visit. The youth of Peotone and the surrounding area are also being impacted by the church in the box. You know, kids are like glue. They're messy and sticky. And when you get a few of them together, they're hard to get them apart. And so what happens is all of the children of the church in the box, they wanted to invite all of their friends to come to the many activities inside the box. And sometimes it would get a little crazy in there. Every Wednesday night, the church in the box juggled youth of all ages and shuffled them in and out of the box, giving them a place where they could see, feel, and live out their faith in Jesus. Sometimes these kids were packed into the box like sardines. And sadly, many times the box was so full of kids that it smelled like a dead fish. It smelled like a dead fish. But the smell didn't seem to bother Lucas and his faithful youth group. Well, the girls complained, but no one listened. The kids continued to play lots of games and participate in activities that were all centered around helping the kids experience transformed lives and to share their lives with others. All of this activity continued to encourage kids to grow in their faith and build a foundation of faith for them that would follow them for years to come. This concludes our story about the church in a box. And even though things are tighter than shoes that are 2 sizes too small, Christ Community Church is a close-knit community. They are a people filled with hope and faith and belief that God is and always will be fulfilling His mission for the people of this church in a box. And He will expand their box, allowing them to continue with the transforming of lives by the power of Jesus and the sharing of the good news to Peotone, all to the glory of God.